Thank you all so much for coming out to Stratham's Government 101 to learn about the ways that we all interact with the town of Stratham and the different school districts and your responsibilities and your opportunities to get involved in local government and the due dates for those things, because there are a lot of them to keep track of. On your seat you have a list of some upcoming dates that are really important to the town of Stratham. Welcome. Please feel free to get up and get some snacks. We have a ton of them, and there's coffee over here. And we're going to get started. I'm going to first introduce, we have with us today Travis Thompson from School Board. You want to say hey?
Good morning. Yeah, so I am currently the chair of the SU16 Joint School Board and vice chair of the Cooperative School Board, which is CMS, Exeter High School, Seco School of Technology, Exeter Adult Eds. I'm missing something, but all that. All of that, the co-op.
Also joining us today are Representative Patty Lovejoy, who is a former member of the school board and actually going to be explaining how all of this interacts with each other. And we may open up for questions for you later, Travis, if you're open to that.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. Happy
Great,
to.
Thank you. Should have asked you that beforehand instead of putting you on the spot.
That's why I'm here.
I'm Deborah Altschler. I am your Stratham State Representative, one of your two Stratham State Reps. Patty is our Floterial State Rep. And I'd like to introduce you to Leslie Kimball, Director of the Wigan Memorial Library, is going to let you know about an upcoming event here related to Stratham Government.
Yes. Thank you again all for coming. I think this is wonderful. Anything that promotes civic engagement in town is incredibly important. This town is, I've worked in other places, and this town is one of the most involved I've ever been at, and I think that's great. So you have these on your chair. We do every year a voter information night where we concentrate on who's running and what people are voting on. So we'll be talking about the issues. We'll have the different departments here to talk about all of that. So I hope that you can make it on March 5th. I also just want to bring your attention, we have a wonderful poster outside in the hallway that lists every single date that you could ever want to know. But it's a great way also to see how much there is and what you want to pay attention to. So I encourage you to do that. Thank you.
Thanks, Leslie. So hopefully you'll be able to make it to voter information night. You've got a card on your seat. And then I'd like to introduce you to Dave Emanuel, our town moderator. So Dave keeps all of this running smoothly. And I'm thinking that today is actually going to be a very chill morning, because I know when Dave is feeling that we all have our Irish up and our little feisty in the room, he usually has a bag of wintergreen mints. So the less wintergreen mints that I see around, the more chill Dave is. Right? Do you have a bag on you? Uh-oh. Oh no! Oh, I spoke too soon.
I do. So if any of you guys need a hint, or the person next to you need a hint, let me know.
Oh, hey
I'll flip
now.
it your way.
Hey now. Okay, so apparently, feel free to get feisty, because he's out loaded for bear here. So, welcome, Dave Emanuel. Thank you very much, and let's get going with Stratham Government 101.
Let me just make one more call out. Beth Dupel, Black Dupel. Beth Dupel is my right-hand person when it comes to some of our moderator functions in town. She is our deputy moderator. And some of the different things we'll talk about over the course of the morning, but I want to make a call out because she is a very important person also. She makes sure that when we talked about doing this program this morning, she said 2 questions. The first one is, are you going to have a bow tie? And the second one was, I think there'll be food. So, I mean, we're on the same page. Yeah, well, so, Beth keeps me on the straight and narrow. My name's Dave Emanuel. A little bit about myself and why I'm here. I grew up here. Growing up here with my kids, people in the background, the Historical Society, the Wigan Memorial Library. You know, my mother did time on the Board of Trustees back in the 80s for the library. I've been involved in civics my entire life. I went to Stratham Memorial School. I went to the Exeter Area Junior High School when we had one. I went to Exeter Area High School, graduated in 90, to date myself. I went to UNH because it was the right thing to do, our state public institution. My father, uncle, aunt, all my cousins have been there. Said, I'm going to UNH. I got in early. I went for business school. As I was finishing up business school, my old man said, well, if you ever want to do engineering or own one of the family businesses, you know, you got to get an engineering degree. At that time, I was in student government, and we were about to build a new student union building, a $4.2 million addition. And on the student government side of it, I was raising the awareness to do a referendum vote to build this facility. Vote passed, and UNH said, hey, why don't you come work for us? So I tied in as a student construction manager on this, my first $4.2 million job, and I started engineering school. So I walked out of UNH with a BS in civil engineering, business administration. I went back for a master's in government and public administration because it's something I'm really passionate about. And on my town government side, my experience has been town government, the fire department, emergency management. And I kind of, while I started at UNH, I started part-time in the fire department. And ran around as one of those geeky kids with a pager on my belt all the time and run into the fires when they came. Now, and I'm not only a member, but I'm the chief of the Durham Fire Department. So I work in municipal government every day. And it's something in New Hampshire municipal government, it's something I'm very passionate about. I love it. So I've been a town school district moderator for about 15 years. W. Douglas Scammon Jr. was the moderator before me. When he was ready to leave, he said, hey, kids, you might, if you ever want to be the moderator, it's time. I made a sign, and the voters of the town of Stratham elected me. So that kind of got me out of the gate. I started going to classes. What do the moderators do? How do the selectmen work? How does government work? And so I've been a student of this my entire life. And our slide background, coincidentally, is I threw some family pictures in because government's a family thing. When I started, my first town meeting was in the old town hall in the early 80s, selling hot dogs in the back of the room with the Cub Scouts. And I remember the floor used to creak when everybody went up. And W. Douglas Scammon Sr. was the moderator. And I was always awed by the way people in Stratham got up and they spoke their mind. Between dances and parties and everything else that was going on in the town hall, the community civic function center, I learned that the government is something I want to be into. It means a lot to me, and I'm trying to bring my kids up with the same grandparents that brought me up in the same town with the same core values. And understand civics and sharing what we learn today and talk about today is vitally important for propagating our knowledge, wisdom, and community into the future. So a little bit about the state of New Hampshire. What do we have? We have 10 counties. 13 of them are cities, 221 towns, of which 32 are SB2 towns. I want to say around 13 to 16 are town council form of governments, around 15, and then we have 25 unincorporated places. So as the framework, how the state works, I wanted to, we have 3 different entities that work with us when we talk about voting and what make the cogs of our government turn around. In simplest terms, on town government, we have the town government, and then we have school government. And the school government's broken down into the Stratham School District, which is the Stratham Memorial School, and the Exeter Regional Cooperative School District. And I put color ballots up here. That theme kind of transcends our program because it's so often when we're at the polls, which is one step in our democratic process, people are like, well, why do I have 3 pieces of paper? I don't want 1. Well, the way our form of governments work together, our election day is on one day, but there are other parts to each one of these parts of government that we're going to talk about today. So this is our framework. We're going to talk about town, school, and cooperative school district. So as far as our town government goes, what kind of town government do we have, you guys? Yeah, okay, fair enough. In New Hampshire, there's 2 basic kinds of town government, and I'm going to focus on towns. We're not going to worry about cities or other things. And they fall under the traditional board of selectmen, traditional town meeting, or a town council with a town manager. Does that make sense? For status, we'll talk about each one of them. And under each of these, there are different, there's sub-forms under each form of government. So the traditional town meeting is what we have in the town of Stratham with the board of selectmen. And when we talk about government, I often think about executive, legislative, and judicial branch. Well, we don't have our own judicial branch yet. But just kidding. Yeah, it's time, you guys. The New Hampshire town meeting form of government, Secretary of State William Gardner says, he commonly refers to it as the purest form of government, just like our state legislature. We're one of the largest standing bodies in the world, 400 delegates. Well, in the town of Stratham, we have, I didn't write it down. 7,500 residents?
Residents, yeah.
We have around, I think we have around 6,000 registered voters, and it goes up and down. So, our form of government, town meeting day, town meeting night, election day and town meeting night, we could have 6,000 people come and participate in our legislative process. Not 7,000. Why not 7,000, Patty?
Because you have to be a registered voter.
Because you have to be a registered voter to win. So, town meeting form of government. We have our executive branch is the Board of Selectmen. The legislative branch is the town meeting night, which is our Friday night. So, with this form of government, the budget and other questions are put before the town in the form of warrant articles on the Friday night, and the board, we set the policy and procedure and budget for the town of Stratham for the next fiscal year, and then we send the selectmen off to do our work. We have spoken, they carry out our wills, our wishes and desires. So, that's the first form. Second form is called the official ballot referendum, or SB2, and we refer to it as SB2. As what does SB2 stand for?
Senate Bill 2.
Senate Bill 2, which what it did was, as government was evolving, because Friday night's not convenient for everybody, even though the ground's frozen, we can't plant anything, it's not quite mud season, so we can't log. We finish our milking, we go do town meeting. As communities evolved, people couldn't do the second part of the town meeting. So what SB2 does is it says instead of having the traditional town meeting night, it says all matters will be decided in the voting booth. So SB2 has a similar deliberative session, which is next week for some SB2 towns, or they're going on right now, depending on what the town or school charter says. They, in this deliberative session, which looks a lot like a town meeting, they vote on what the warrant article will say. They'll vote on what the budget will say, and then it will go on election day, that Tuesday, the state town meeting day, it will go to the ballot booth, and everyone votes on every article in the voting booth. There is no binding, collaborative town meeting where everyone comes up, speaks their mind, and sways votes. That's the biggest difference between our traditional town meeting, where everybody in the room gets a chance to speak, and then we vote, and the SB2, everybody gets a chance to say what the piece of paper is going to say, and then votes on what the paper will say, and then they vote on the paper on Tuesday. So, I'm just going to glance over the other couple. We have the customized SB2, which changes some of the budget regulations and how the SB2 is administered. And then the third one is representative town meeting, where, similar to like maybe city wards, you will identify people to represent your district at the traditional town meeting. So it's a representative meeting. You know, if we're going to say per 100, maybe we'll have 60 people will go to town meeting instead of 6,000. And you set that up by town charter, however the town chooses to vote on it. Each of these forms of government is a decision by the people for the people, for how they're going to run their community. And you can change the form of government anytime. We could incorporate it as a city, we can incorporate it as an SB2 town, we could incorporate it as a town council form of government. We just have to put it on the ballot and vote for it. So it's something that it's very much in our control. The second form is the town council, town manager. This one, they formally elect representatives. Town of Durham has 9 town councilors. They have election day once a year to vote on pressing issues or significant warrant, but they empower the town council and the town manager to execute those plans throughout the year. The town council approves the budget. The town manager administers it. So it's a more representative form of government. Whether you break it up in districts or everyone just votes on who their favorite 9 people to represent them are, it's a different form of government. There's a handful in the state. Now, our town government, specifically, we are governed by the Board of Selectmen. That's our executive branch. How many selectmen do we have?
3.
What's the most we've had?
5.
We said, hey, let's have 5. Let's give it a shot. We changed our government. We had 5 selectmen. They didn't like it very much. Next year, we turned it back to 3. 2 of you guys, see ya. They get over it. We get over it. So, I mean, we have been open-minded. We've changed our stuff before. What do? They meet, I'll tell you in a second. They're responsible for carrying out the wishes of the town body. Once a year, on that Friday night, we give them their marching orders. This is how much money you have. This is what we want you to spend it on. Go get it. And they take it from there. So, individually, as a selectman, how much power does an individual select person have?
0.
0. Yeah, they only work as a collective. You have to have a quorum, you have to have 2/3 to win. So, what do? They appoint the boards and commissions. They develop, with the Budget Advisory Committee, the budget for the year, and they make recommendations for the warrant articles for the town to vote on. They lay out the bricks for us to put the road together, the foundation. And then they're responsible for carrying out the tasks. They pass administrative ordinances. They oversee all departments with the exception of the the Wigan Memorial Library, because it has its own board of trustees. They oversee all towns and businesses, all town business and assets. They hire all the employees. They oversee the risk management for the town, for our risk and liabilities, and they can issue proclamations. I know, that's kind of cool. I mean, hey, the moderator doesn't get to issue proclamations. So, this is the scope for the Board of Selectmen. When do they meet? Sorry, one more thing. Things specifically, I had to put in, I tell you what they can do. There's certain things they can't do. Of the things they can't do, they cannot interfere with decisions reserved by other boards, such as planning, zoning, appeals, and they cannot exercise authority that they do not have. What does that mean? That means, in the state of New Hampshire, if the moderator is going to have a power, state law has to say the moderator has that power. Dave Emanuel can't say, I'm the moderator, I'm going to do this. If the state of New Hampshire didn't empower me or my office with that, I can't do it. So, it applies to the Board of Selectmen as well. Does the board, is that in their purview? If it's not outlined as things that they can do, they can't do it. Is it important? It can be from time to time. Board of Selectmen meets the first and third Mondays, 7 o'clock, around the corner down the hall. The meetings have to be posted by 5 o'clock on Friday, so everyone is duly noticed. The public notice goes out. Everyone knows what's going to be discussed. And all their meetings are public meetings with documents to support them. So, Heidi, if you want to know what went on at the Board of Selectmen's meeting on Monday night, you can go down and read the minutes or listen to the recording of the minutes. That's the deal. That's the deal. There is no such thing as a secret meeting. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's not supposed to be such a thing as a secret meeting. Now, there are closed sessions. If we need to talk about something going on that's town business or personnel issues, we can have an executive session, which will seal the minutes. So that is a transition point where it is used sparingly for appropriate business. But that's not to talk about where the town's going or how they're going to get there. The selectmen, current selectmen, Mike, Joe, and Allison, and David Moore was here a couple minutes ago. He is our new town administrator. Their terms expire in 2020, 2019, and 2019. And one thing I noticed when I was touching up on my research since the last time we did this program was sometimes we refer to it as a select board, and sometimes we refer to it as a board of selectmen, as the town. You know, we're kind of inconsistent about what we call ourselves. And when I spoke with Selectman Knapp, we know that we're not select people. We're select men or select women or a select board. So we're still evolving. It's all good. The legislative branch is the town meeting. For the town of Stratham, it's when the registered voters assemble on the Friday night to talk about our budget and warrant articles and to carry out any other business that come before the town meeting. As a moderator, it's my responsibility to preside at this meeting and to ensure order. And I look at it as my personal philosophy is to conduct business the way Stratham has. I've known it for 45 years, and we've always been friends, families, and neighbors that can work out our differences and speak our mind with dignity and respect, and vote and go on tomorrow. We'll go out hand, or we'll go milking, or we'll go to the skateboard park, or whatever we need to do, because we can all work together, because this is our community, and we're the ones who determine how it's going to be. I think it's important for everybody who takes the time to come to town meeting to have their chance to speak their mind, clearly not to be harassed, to have a neutral playing ground, and we joked about it on the way in. Leslie's favorite rule for the moderator's rules, the moderator makes the rules. And that's one power that the state of New Hampshire has said the moderator is responsible for establishing the rules of conduct for the town meeting. And I think I have 8 rules that I read out. It takes me 3 to 5 minutes to talk about how we're going to talk, how we're going to ask questions, that everything's going to go through me. And not because I have a fat head, but because I, as a moderator, can diffuse anything. And there's not going to be a run-in argument or name-calling or anything that's going to make some people feel uncomfortable because they're not used to public speaking, but they're not going to be belittled, or they're not going to feel bad about speaking at any meeting that I'm conducting or that we conduct in the town of Stratham. It's an open forum. And I have worked individually with some of our special interest groups that are interested in initiatives, whether it's dog walking, whether it's parking, whether it's skateboard parks, just to explain the process so everybody knows their voices should be heard. This is the place where we do it. And it's not about getting through the meeting in an hour. It's about getting through the meeting in a time and pace where everyone can say their peace of mind and contribute new information so everyone can make informed decisions. It's very different than social media. This is a dialogue They ask questions of the moderator, and I will find the person in the room who can answer the question. And that person will respond with the authority and data and information. So one of the challenges I have is just to disarm the emotional argument, because it's easy to walk into a room knowing how you're going to vote, or we don't agree on this. But when you present the information and the facts, and we talk about it rationally, we can do a lot of cool things together. That's how our government's supposed to work. So that's the first part of our town meeting. Well, the first part is the election day. It's the Tuesday. And we'll show a calendar in a few minutes, but the way our rhythm goes, there's a Friday night school district meeting, state election day on Tuesday, followed by our town meeting on Friday night. So for town government, part one is the election day. The second Tuesday of March, we vote on town officers and any warrant articles that are on the ballot. And this is where people say, why do I have 3 ballots? Well, one of your ballots, for today's presentation, the white ballot is the town of Stratham ballot, which goes with our town meeting form of government. For the election day, or the ballot portion of town meeting, if you cannot be present, you can request an absentee ballot through the clerk's office for any one of the 3 ballots, and the clerk will give it to you or mail it to you, because you're signing an affidavit saying you cannot physically be present to vote on election day. You are entitled to vote. We want you to vote. Get your ballot, send it back, turn it back to the clerk, and we will process them on election day with everyone else's ballots. Part 2, picture. Right. This is the nurse's office, the principal's office, right, or current 2019 Stratham Municipal Center. And one of the other state directives that we have is, as a moderator, I'm responsible for monitoring the poll standards and making sure that it's clear. The Secretary of State says clearly that there's a 10-foot aisle. There has to be a minimum of a 10-foot aisle where voters can walk through without being accosted by anyone. That are poll standards. And I just throw that out as a tidbit because everybody's always like, why are you guys out front with signs, or I don't want to talk to you. But this is part of our government, and everyone that's out front and we're trying to do the same thing. We're trying to influence and connect dots and network. And it's just another place where the selectman's job is to maintain the facility. My job is to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. So the other things I'm supposed to take care of, I'm tasked with taking care of, the moderator is responsible for appointing the town budget advisory committee and the school district, the Stratham School District Financial Advisory Committee. Inspectors of the election, an assistant moderator, which I think I made an excellent choice. Sorry. We're very fortunate to have good help here. And if the supervisor of the checklist can't be there, it's moderator's supposed to, we all cross-check who appoints who in the event that somebody can't be present to win. So our financial advisory committee and budget committees work within the framework we were just speaking with. And I told you that the moderator is the chief election officer. So what that means is we usually check in, or we're visited every election by either the Attorney General's office or the Secretary of State. And they check our facility, they count the number of booths we have, they count the number of books we have, they check every piece of paper that we're required to post on the wall. They check the distances to the parking lot, they check any barriers that could make it difficult for someone to vote. Our ADA voting machine, we have literally a multiple-page checklist that they rate us on every election. So it's my job, it's the selectman's job to make sure that they have the electricity, the pencils, the light, and that the facility meets the requirements. And the town clerk and I work to make sure that the rest of it's in order. So we're voting fairly. And that everything is tight. My favorite part is the bake sale. I can't lose. This is, again, why do we have a bake sale? Well, this is an opportunity where our civic organizations can come out and meet up to the 5,000 voters, 6,000 voters that are coming through. So, I don't know. I enjoy the pie, the cookies, and seeing the guys and ladies that come in and take care of us behind the scenes that don't go on. Is it a big deal? Well, if you read the New Hampshire magazine article about what makes town meetings special, I'm going to tell you that the bake sale made the list. The colorful moderator and the bake sale, we were on the same level for making town government work. So what's on the town ballot? A sample. This is one of our tally sheet ballots. I just wanted to refresh everybody's memories. My wife said, are they supposed to have numbers next to them? Well, this is the moderators. This is one of our worksheets we put together at the end of the election. All of our ballots, it says whatever the office is, the term, who's running, and the important thing is vote for not more than one. Now sometimes we'll see one a different ballot will have don't vote for more than 2. And your job, as voters, is to color in the bubble. I know it sounds silly, but actually we have a machine which is kind of an extension of the traditional ballot box that you just put everything into. Traditionally, we would just hand count everything. But as we've evolved, we have an electronic voting system with basically a scanner. And the Scantron machine is a proprietary software for every election that the Secretary of State issues us a card for this, based on our ballot, based on what we voted to put on the ballot. And each ballot has unique identifiers, so this machine is smart enough to know whether it's a school district ballot, a co-op ballot, or a town ballot. And then you have to color in the dot. And that's how it counts the votes. Now, you don't have to color in every office, but if you color in too many dots, your vote won't count. If you don't color in any dots, your vote doesn't count. So it's kind of, you get your ballot and then you have to fill it out. You have to fill it out right. So on a town election, we're going to vote for people, and usually it's zoning amendments or other stuff going on in town like zoning amendments. Are you in favor of adopting? Are you in favor of adopting the zoning ordinances proposed by the planning board? And these are how we change the rules for how people build their houses, develop their land, preserve and protect the wetlands, or it sets the priorities for, ties people's hands. This is the new law that people have to follow. And we do this to ourselves, our friends, and our neighbors for how we want the community to look and grow. So, and these are, of the polling place, Graham's standing next to the AccuCheck machine. I know you guys have all voted. And this year, people that are up on the office are not people, but our positions. We have a Board of Selectmen position, a 3-year term, a Selectman a 2-year term to fill Bob O'Sullivan's position. If you see the trend, Selectman is a 3-year term. Library Trustee, there's 2 positions, 3-year terms each. Trustee of the Trust Fund is 1 position. Trustee of the Trust Fund kind of oversees our financial pool of cash and all the different places our money lives. And a Cemetery Trustee. So, I didn't bring the names, but these are the people from January 23rd to any day now is the registration period to run for office.
On Friday. Yeah, it ended on Friday.
Ended on Friday, yesterday. Yeah. So, if you're going to run now, you have to do it as a write-in. Not impossible. First time my wife was elected to the treasurer of the trust as a trustee of the trust fund, it was a write-in because it was an empty spot. She didn't think it was that funny, but she did it. I think she did it for 2 terms. She's a good. I have a good wife. She took one for the town of Stratham and served as a trustee for 2 years. So I say it tongue in cheek because it could happen to any one of you. Because when it's a blank spot, nobody's registered, and people think, hey, it'd be really funny to have Travis as a
I got elected the first time.
Yeah, it can happen. Is it good? But it's the will of the people again. It's how our government works. So, the second part of our town meeting is the traditional assembly. And this is the second part of town meeting. It's held Friday, 3 days after Election Day. And we vote for the warrant articles and to conduct any other business. And the sticky part about the traditional town meeting, part 2, the meeting, you have to be present to win. You have to be present to vote at the traditional town meeting night. So, when I've spoken with my brothers that are being deployed other places, or they're on shift, they have to work, they can't make it, and they say, I want to vote for this article, what do? I say, knock on your 3 neighbors' doors and get their bottoms in the seats at the town meeting. Find people to go and vote your mind, because we can't help you. Which is one of the things that people were attracted to some of the other forms of town government, like the Senate Bill 2 referendum ballot. You don't have to go to the meeting. On the flip side, you don't have to listen to what anybody has to say. You can do your own thing in your own booth and vote totally isolated without anybody else, without knowing what anybody else is thinking about or how you're working together collectively. On the town warrant, I don't have the warrant yet. I think that is still in the fabrication stages right now, so that will be posted for hearing, and that right now is the time to catch up with the Board of Selectmen on what will be on the ballot. And if we have time at the end, if anybody wants to walk through a discussion or a town warrant article, I'm happy to do that. I don't want to take the time right now. So, again, just to frame it up again, I've been talking about the town of Stratham. And in the big picture, Stratham voters in the middle of the Venn diagram with 3 mutual organizations. The next one we're going to transition to is the school government. So, what brought us to school government? Travis touched on it briefly. We have a 6-town, I threw the map up so we have an idea. Stratham, Newfields, Exeter, Brentwood, East Kingston, and Kensington forms the supervisory administrative unit. And our two parts that we work with SAU 16 are the Stratham School District, which is Stratham Memorial School, and the Exeter Regional Cooperative. Is this, let me go through a couple more. When I went to the SAU website, bless their hearts and rest their souls, we have several dead people on the chart.
Michael Morgan is not.
Yeah, and Paul's not here with us anymore either. I know Mike and I are pretty good friends,
One, yeah.
but this is what our current website shows for information. Good? You know, it's okay. They're both good guys. I know they'd be smiling at us right now. But what I wanted to show you was, for the supervisory unit, the superintendent works with the joint board and the co-op board. Town of Stratham is down here. This is our school district, and the cooperative school district is over here. Just to have an idea how we fit into the puzzle. What do you mean they're different schools? Well, we're going to talk about each of them in a minute, just to give you an idea of the lay of the land. And if any of you guys are Google hounds, or super Twitter paters, I would challenge you to find, as we touch on these, or by the end of the show, tell me what the budget numbers are for our 3 forms of government. Town of Stratham Government, Stratham School District, and that cooperative school district
You
budget.
know what the biggest is?
So, the SAU 16, 6 towns. Individual town boards represent their individual elementary schools, and then the cooperative school district, Travis just ran through it. Middle school, high school, Seacoast School of Technology, or the old VOTEC, and adult ed. Make sense? So, let's start off with Stratham. And each of them has a different form of government. Stratham School Board mirrors the town of Stratham. So they have a school board and a traditional town meeting form of government. It's coincidental that I'm the moderator of both. I don't have to be the moderator for both. They're different duration, they're different length terms, they're different gigs, they're different meetings, different responsibilities, different everything. Same thing with, they've tried to get me to be the moderator of the cooperative school district too, and I'm like, I like you guys a lot, but
We'll keep trying, Dave.
yeah, no dice. Stratham School District is 5 elected school board members. We elect them on election day. Who are they? Jillian, Cheryl, Sarah, Eric, and Bob, with their term expiration dates. The legislative branch of the school district is very similar to town meeting, except it's the the Friday before election day. So it's the first Friday of the month, or the Friday before the second Tuesday. I think that's how the legislation reads. I know, there's reasons and wisdom for everything, so it's consistent. That's all I can tell you. Voters, just like town meeting, you have to be present to win at the legislative session of the school district meeting. Part 1 is the ballot. Part 1 for school district is this meeting, the Friday night meeting. It's an SMS. It's the week before. Voters must be present to win. The second part for the school district is election day, when you take your ballot, you go in the booth, and you vote on the money and the rest of the business. You can have an absentee ballot to vote in the booth. Sorry, the money's done on the night meeting. Other articles are done. Usually its positions are elected during election day for the school district. The ballot for the school district. This is where it's important. Vote for not more than 2. There are 2. There might be 4, there could be 6. And depending on who's running, it still could be a write-in that wins one of these races. And one of the things that's interesting, when we read the totals, and I didn't, totals vary widely. It might be a few hundred people that vote for this article or this person. It might be thousands of people that voted on the one before it. So people definitely, in my experiences, people often come to town election day to vote for very specific things, that's fine. It changes the dynamics of some of the election stuff, or when you're running for office, you need to know what the hot buttons are, or whether people, you need to ask people to vote for you, because if they're just going to, if Eric's neighbors just come to vote for Eric, they might not be voting on the turf field replacement, the selectmen, or any of the stuff going on. It's just interesting stuff, I think. Positions being elected in March for the school board. School board member, one position, 3-term. School district treasurer is a Stratham School District treasurer, one person for 3 years term, and the moderator. So if you want to oust the rascal that's the school district moderator, this is your chance. I know, what are you gonna do? I look at all this stuff, if it's not fun, I don't like to do it. So I try to carry the voters along with me in a relatively neutral way of being entertaining, where everybody can participate and understand what we're doing, so we can all have fun doing it. The co-op board. The Exeter Regional Cooperative School District, formerly the area school, when we reincorporated in the 90s.
When we voted on the new middle school.
New middle school was a trigger point,
That
was
was
it
a trigger
97-ish?
point, Yeah.
Yeah,
somewhere
we
around.
changed our form of government. I can't tell you all the specifics, I didn't go back, I just knew I grew up in an area school district, and now we have a regional school district. It's the fine details of how we make our stuff work. We buy it the same way, we pay for it the same way, we vote for it in a similar way, but this group, again, middle school, high school, tech school, and adult education. The cooperative school board, form of government, is an SB2 form of government, which is confusing sometimes because everything is on the ballot that you get with election day. On election day, one of the 3 ballots is going to have numbers and money and fiscal things on it. The other 2 are not. Which again, if you don't understand the 3 different organizations going on, the 3 different governments going on, like, I want to vote on the town budget. Why am I voting on the school budget? Well, the cooperative school is an SB2 form of government. Money is done in the booth. Make sense to everybody? So all business is done. The person who bailed me out is Kate Miller from Donahue, Tucker, and Chandela. This is a photograph of Kate. She had just sworn me in as a school district moderator. She's swearing my 6-year-old daughter in as a junior cooperative school district moderator. I know, you can't make this stuff up, but everybody's involved. And my kids, I have 3 kids, and they're all learning about government every time we do something. The board is made up of 6 towns and 9 elected members. I just threw, again, the ballot, when you walk in and you pick up your cooperative, your regional cooperative school district ballot, everybody gets to vote on everybody's stuff. We're electing all the members to all the boards, to the cooperative board for all towns. Sorry, board, singular. Travis, his sentence is up in 2020. I mean, his term expires. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, you know, again, the town moderator is a 2-year term, the school district moderator is a 3-year term. So I know every 3rd year I don't have to run something, I don't have to make my sign or go to the venue. But, and, you know, we all have a lot going on. So you gotta keep track of when your stuff's up.
Something interesting about the co-op board. Well, let's just take the one that's expiring this year, in
Hey,
Brentwood.
stand up, come on up.
Okay,
Please.
in Brentwood. Now, Brentwood could have 2 people running for that open seat. But they're elected in all 6 towns. So say the 2 people, it's Fred and Mary. Fred gets 1,000 votes and Mary gets 5 votes. But in the entire cooperative, Mary gets more votes than Fred. Mary is the one who's elected. So it's not who got the most votes in their own town. And that, the 9 years that I was on the cooperative, that did happen. That there were 2 people running for a spot. One got a lot more votes in their town than the other by a significant amount. But you take a small town like, you know, Kensington or East Kingston or Newfields. But the number of votes that that person got in all of the other towns, even though they're theoretically representing, you know, they're representing Brentwood or whatever on the co-op, you are running in all 6 towns. So that's kind of a, you have to be from Brentwood to be on the ballot for the Brentwood seat. But you're being elected by all people in all 6 towns.
Tell me, why was the town of Brentwood significant in our last round of elections?
Much time do we have?
Coincidentally.
They did not vote for the middle school addition by a very significant margin. So,
Did that change the course of the election?
yes, it is.
It changed the outcome of the vote.
Yeah, so it's,
For the middle
anything that we vote on at the co-op is all, it's the total of all 6 towns, even though Stratham might overwhelmingly vote for something, if it's not the total in all 6 towns. But the part that is strange is that when you're running for a board position, even though you're running for the board position in Brentwood, there's 2 people, you win overwhelmingly in Brentwood, but if you don't win, if you don't get the most votes in the total 6 towns, you lose. And that has happened.
So would you end up with a situation where someone in Newfield is the only one and they didn't get it? And so Newfield has no representative?
No. So there's on the ballot this time, there will be 1 person from Brentwood, there's always somebody from Exeter because they have three, and then 1 from Kensington. The person who's, the people, there might be multiple, that are running for those 3 spots have to be from those towns. So you have to be from Kensington.
Right.
To put your name on the Kensington ballot, but there could be 2 people from Kensington
Right.
on the ballot. And it's the person that gets the most votes in all 6 towns, even though they could lose hugely in their own town.
Right.
They can win overall.
Right. So each town at least have 1 representative?
Each town, yes, it's got to be from that person. You're looking at me like I can't possibly be right.
No, I have a question on the middle school project.
Yes.
So do you have to win each town
No.
individually, or is it the total votes?
You have to, when I look at some of the big ones that we had for the 9 years that I was on the co-op, whether it was for the new school, any of that, Stratham has historically voted high for school issues. And Brentwood has traditionally voted against them. I don't know why. I mean, they've traditionally voted against them. So there have been bond issues where we needed 60%, but it was because Stratham and Exeter voted more than 60% that offset towns that voted against it. So bond issues, it's all 6 towns, total 60%. You look at it as 1 voting block, not individual town voting blocks, which is different in other SAUs. SAU 21, each town has to do it. Like when they have a teacher's contract, it's got to be passed in each town within that co-op. We are not set up that way. Our co-op, our co-op is the total, the voters are counted as a whole, but it can be different reasons. SAU 21.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're running money, and even simple stuff that we think we're all tight on. You know, I don't know that I'd ever thought, that thought hadn't crossed my mind. How do you push, Mrs. Stratham could elect their favorite person to somebody else's board? It's all how you frame it and look at it. Because if your town outnumbers somebody, or if your town voters outnumber another town, and Patty moves to Greenland, or not Greenland, Patty moves to Newfields, we want her to still represent us, we could elect Patty to represent Newfields on the cooperative school board. Yeah, it's all how you look at things, and there are people that are far craftier than I am that always have that spin, or how to make the system work for their benefit. So it's my job to make sure that the system works for everybody's benefit. The SB2 deliberative session is done. When was the deliberative session, Patty?
We deliver this Thursday.
Dave, you got a sheet right
Oh,
there.
It's on the 7th.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Stream of consciousness. Yes, I like to work with her. I like interacting. So the 7th, February 7th, Exeter Region Cooperative School District deliberative session. What's the deliberative session? What's the setup for these guys?
It's the SB2 part 1.
It's the SB2 Part 1. What do they set at the deliberative session?
What's gonna be
They'll
on
set the warrant. What's on the warrant? What's the most important thing, or the biggest thing that's going to be on the co-op warrant?
Well, that's an opinion thing. It's either the
Turf field or no turf field?
No, middle school edition, yes. CMS edition or the budget, it depends on
Yeah.
what,
Depends
you
on your
know.
perspective.
And Lucy, I don't know how we did on the electronic form here. This would be a good place to insert numbers, and I don't need exact dollar amounts, but roughly what magnitude are we talking about for the middle school edition? What are-
The middle school edition is $17.8 million over probably a 20-year bond.
So around 17, just under $18 million.
And the budget is just under
59?
just under 60
Just under
million.
60 million.
Yeah, so 60 million. And, I don't know if I want to disclose that information or not.
Do it. Now you have to.
Okay. Although I do envision myself as a good citizen and steward for our government, I do not always attend the deliberative session.
Neither does anyone
Well,
else.
Dave, I'll tell you right now, it's one of the most disappointing things that we see, and Lucy can attest to this, as can Patty.
Yep.
We will go to this deliberative session for SU 16 for the cooperative district, and we're talking in this instance upwards of 60, 70, $8 million, and unless there's something very controversial going on, we'll be lucky if we get 100 people that show up to talk about what's going to go on the warrant, to talk about the numbers, to vote on what we're supposed to present in the ballot box. $78 million. And out of all of our 6 towns, Dave, how many people reside in SU 16 approximately?
I didn't put that in there.
Put Dave right on the spot. Well, there's 7,500 in Stratham, there's 12 in Exeter, I mean, it's 25,000 people. We'll get 100 to show up.
And of the 100, if you take out all that are related to school board,
Right.
that work for the
Administrators,
school, the
teachers,
administrators,
staff.
you're talking about this number of people
Right.
here.
So think about it this way.
Yep.
We could have a situation take place where 100 people can decide we want this or we don't want that to go on our ballot. And that affects every one of us, all of our taxes, every one of our kids that attend any school in SU 16. And it's incredibly disappointing how that works. And my back.
Well, it's just- no,
Can I just ask a question? If enough people showed up, could they half that budget,
Yes.
Yes.
technically?
Yes.
Yes.
Now, there are some safeguards, there's a default budget that would, sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's lower, but we have specific obligations that the voters cannot change. We have contracts with our teachers and staff. We have legal obligations, we have payments on facilities, we have bond issues that have already been approved. We can't not pay those. So we have legal obligations, so they can, correct me if I'm wrong, set it to basically what we call the default budget, which may not include things that we as the board, that the administration, that people feel are important. It may not include a new mental health person to help us at the high school. It may not include certain things that the community feels are important. It will default to what we're legally obligated to support. But yeah, somebody could come in and
Where
say,
is that stated, or how does one find out what the line items are and
The
what
warrant article is posted on the website, but to give you an idea of something that really could happen, and when we were going to build the new Exeter High School, when we had the night that we were having the deliberative session on that, there was a group of people that did not want to build anything. So they came with the hope of slashing it. I mean, it cost $49 million to buy the land and build that high school for 2,000 students. I mean, Newmarket is trying to do one for about the same amount for a much, much smaller piece. So the room was packed. It was at the old Talbot Gym. There was standing room only because the citizens knew we needed this new high school. I mean, we were already losing our accreditation because of the facility at the old Exeter High School.
Mhm.
But that night, the people who showed up could have changed that warrant article from being the $49 million that we needed to do it to $5 million. You couldn't have built a high school. So the people who showed up that night, there were a lot of parents, people knew that it was important for them to get out on that Thursday night, even though it's cold outside, and they showed up. But usually, unless there's a big item, you don't get a lot of people showing up for the deliberative session.
That's smaller than the yearly budget.
Pardon me? Yes,
That's smaller than the yearly.
yes.
Well, one of the ironic things is, growing up here, we'd argue about how many bags of grass seed we're gonna buy for Stratham Hill Park.
Yeah.
Do we really need a loon loader this year? Do we need the 4th police car? Do we buy it or do we rent it? And these 3 $300 item, $10,000 item, $30,000, maybe $100,000. Let's talk a big one. Let's talk about the $500,000 fire truck. We're talking about $500,000, bonded over 30 years, bonded over 20 years. We're not talking about the $40 to $60 million annual operating budget. So, although we want to go toe to toe and argue about things and get the most bang for our buck, sometimes we're so far out of whack. We're just, usually in the governments that I work with, the town government's like 25%. 25% of our taxes or less go to town government. And of that 25%, the budget I'm familiar with, upward of 90% of that is personnel. So now we're talking about bag of seed, the fire truck, or the police car, whatever it is. We're talking about pennies on the thousands.
Dave, that holds true too in Stratham, not just the co-op, but when I was on the Stratham Elementary Board, Heidi was on the board with me as were a few other folks, but at that town meeting for the Stratham School Board, and again, unless there's something controversial, that budget at the time when I was on that board was somewhere around 10 million, give or take, I think. Does that sound about right, Heidi?
Still is right around there.
Still right around there. And again, unless there was something controversial going on, you get 50, 60 people show up, teachers that live in town, parents that have kids in schools, pretty much a very supportive crowd, and we would pass a budget for $10 million. And then we come to town meeting, and we would debate for an hour, $20,000 for a new truck for Seth. And I'm sitting there saying, we spent all your money a week ago, and not one of you took the time to show up.
We spent 1.5 times that, yeah.
Right. You have to be there.
And, one other thing I want to say, each of these different forms of government, you have to dig through the papers to see how the budget works. When you read about, I don't want to give you nuts and bolts in the town of Hampton, but the town of Hampton's an SB2 town. The town of Durham is a town council form of government. Each of them has different rules for what you do when the budget's voted down. What is the default? Is it the default town administrator's budget? Is it the default selectmen's budget that was proposed? Or does it default to whatever 2018 was? And you have to look at the charter or the individual articles that govern the body that we're talking about, because they're not all the same. And it makes a big difference. Now, we're home to figure it out. Please.
I'm not involved in government at all, and I'm very confused. So, the deliberative session decides how much money will be spent on the project, and that goes on the ballot?
Yeah,
What's the difference between a warrant and a ballot?
Well, the ballot is made up of the warrant articles.
Okay.
So in a town format, like our elementary school is and our town is, the selectmen or the board puts together the warrant articles that are going to be on there. Citizens can, I think it's somewhere in here we're going to talk about, citizens can put a petition to do a warrant article. It takes 25 people. They have to, the language has got to be right, but 25 people can put a warrant article on, and then that goes to the, that's on the official town meeting. Now, there have been warrant articles in the past that have passed that the board was against. To give you one that changed Stratham pretty significantly, maybe about 20 plus years ago, been here a long time, there was a warrant article that was proposed by taxpayers. There's more than 25 citizens did it, that said you need to have a 2-acre lot in order to build a house. We used to be a 1-acre lot. The select board was completely against it. But it went out, it was on the warrant when we voted on it at the town meeting to change the lot size from 1 acre to 2 acres, and at the town meeting it passed. So ever since then, you need 2 acres, a 2-acre lot to build a house. So it can come, a warrant article can come from the selectmen or the school board, but it can also come from individuals. And that's the same thing if you are an SB2. 25 voters within all 6 towns of SAU 16 can put together a warrant article, and it will show up. We'll talk about it that night at the deliberative session. We can't significantly change the intent of it. We could change the dollar amount. I mean, if someone put a $10 million warrant article for something, that deliberative session could reduce it to $1 million or whatever.
So are we in SB 2 too?
The cooperative, that's part of it, the
The town is
cooperative,
not.
the school board that's middle school, high school, SST, and adult ed, that is SB 2.
So everything has to go to the ballot.
Everything has to go to the ballot for that. We're kind of getting into what we're going to be talking about. But, so for the
No, it's good to
cooperative.
recap it.
Yes.
Well, let's focus on the question on SB2.
Yeah, so SB 2 is only the cooperative. The elementary school, which is a separate school district, which is the K through 5, is in the traditional town meeting format, and the town of Stratham is in the traditional town meeting format. But the cooperative, so we're one of those towns that has to deal with both. I mean,
Like the town of Exeter, for example. Town of Exeter
Yeah.
and the Exeter School District and the cooperative are all SB2 towns.
in fact, one of the things I was going to say when I'm talking about, I was going to say it now.
Yeah,
Of the 6 towns in the cooperative, 4 of them, everything is SB2. So if you live in Newfields, in East Kingston, Kensington, or Exeter, you're only dealing with SB2. Every form of government, whether it's your local school district, the cooperative district, or your town, is all SB2. Brentwood and Stratham are the only 2 towns within SAU 16 that have the town meeting format for their local school and their town, but are part of the SB2 for the co-op, which is what makes it confusing in Stratham. People will come to the ballot on Tuesday, the day that they're going to be voting, and they're like, well, I'm voting on the co-op budget, but where's the town of Stratham school district budget? Oh, we voted on that on Friday. You know,
What?
what?
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason that we've, I think it was about 10 years ago last time we did this Government 101. If you've lived in town for a long time, you may still be confused. But if I think it takes people many years of being here to understand what the difference is and what the implications of it. There's 2 big differences in my mind between an SB2 and not, and being a town, the town meeting format. SB2, you can do absentee ballot. You don't have to, you can come in Stratham anytime between 8 in the morning and 8 at night and vote, or you can do absentee ballot. When you're the town meeting format, you gotta be there on that Friday night, and there's no absentee ballot. Another big difference is on if you have a bond for something. When we did the bond for building the police office, when we did the bond for doing the fire station. If you are a town meeting format, you need to have 2/3 of the people who show up that night say yes. If you are SB2 and you're doing it at the polls, you only need 60% of the people who voted. And part of it, you're dealing with much larger groups, so that the state law is you need 60% for one, 2/3 for the other. Those are 2 big differences between the 2. And anyway.
No, it's cool stuff. And the other form of government that I work with every day is the town council form of government, where we elect people like Les, Beth, and Patty to run our business all the time. And when the big bond comes up, it's on election day. Otherwise, you approve the budget.
Yeah.
You take care of it.
Fortunately, we don't have that.
No, well, the interesting thing is,
Yeah.
we don't have a deliberative session that nobody
Yeah.
comes to.
Yeah.
And then everybody votes on an educated. We vote on educated people who represent us.
Yeah.
It's a different form of representative government. So, if you want to go all in, go all in. If you don't want to go all in, look at your options, because, there's been a number of SB2 towns in the state of New Hampshire that have also tried to come back to traditional government, because they know that they get the same response the cooperative school district gets. And it's a small number of people that aren't elected that are driving the boat, steering the ship. So it's an interesting dynamic. Is one better than another? I'm not here to say one's better than another. I'm just saying, when we open a dialogue about, we want to have SB2 like everybody else, I'm like, well, everybody else doesn't have SB2. And make a decision on what you really want. How to make it work for Stratham and the voters of Stratham. Just before you say, I want the same thing they have, because that's what they have. That might not be what you have. Ask what they have. And one of the other places it gets confusing is when you work in just when you sit at a desk next to somebody who lives in Durham, and somebody who lives in Portsmouth, and somebody who lives in Rochester, you know, incorporated cities are on an entirely different voting cycle and budget cycle, as are town councils, as are all of the town government, you know, town meeting form of government stuff. So it doesn't make it easy to have a uniform understanding of how any of us work, because even the SAU, we're different. Makes it challenging. But it puts the responsibility back on the voter again. It's our job to be involved in our participative government. It's our civic duty.
So, now that I'm on problem with all the wonderful poll people, is there a reason why we can't do it, start at 7 a.m.? Because just standing out there saying.
It's gonna be on the
Oh, it
warrant.
is,
That's a
okay,
great
I
question.
apologize.
It's going to be on the warrant.
Who determines, my question for you people, who determines the hours of the polling place in Stratham, New Hampshire?
We do.
We do.
We do. It's not the clerk or the moderator, it's the vote of the town.
Is it going to be 7 to 8 or 7 to
There is
7?
a warrant article that will be at the town meeting on the Friday night after you voted at the polls.
Right.
And one of the warrant articles that the selectmen have put forward is to change the voting hours from 7 to 7. Right now, they're 8 to 8, and Joyce was one who really was pushing for this, because
You missed some.
at 8 o'clock in the morning, there's a long line. There's a lot of people who think they should vote from 7. And in the last hour of voting, between 7 and 8 at night, we get very few people. So that to make it more convenient for the voters, the selectmen they do have a warrant article. So if you come to the town meeting, you can hold up your little orange card or whatever it is. and-
We haven't determined what color they're gonna be.
I know, yeah, okay, whatever.
Green is a lovely color.
Yeah,
Last year we had two.
yeah. Yeah, why did you have cards?
We wrote down to submit.
Yeah.
What was the, I can't remember the
Interesting.
warrant article.
Well, who's allowed to vote in the town meeting again?
Registered voters.
How do we know that you're a registered voter?
Checklist.
You checked in when you come in, you visit the supervisors of the checklist, and we give you a card to vote.
2 questions. How do you know that people are not registered somewhere else? Do you have a sort of national cross checklist?
That's a great
somewhere?
question. Let me come, yeah, I'll answer that right now. We have, the state, Secretary of State's office maintains a registered voter checklist. And I'll touch on elected officials in a minute, but we elect people to be supervisors of the checklist, and their responsibility is to call and make sure that we register. We take the dead people out, put the new people in.
You cross-check it across states?
We literally scan it in with barcodes with the state registry, and we compare before every election.
That's the
No,
Secretary of State. That's the
Versus New
Secretary of
York?
State.
Because I have
Oh, versus
neighbors
different states.
who have property in New York and spend some of their time here, some of their time there. Happens with
Yeah,
Massachusetts
that's a great question.
all the time. I grew up in a country where elections were rigged every time. So I'm concerned about that. And it's very easy, from what I've seen, to do that here. And I'm sure some people are doing it.
not easy.
No,
There's
I could vote
there's
in
only
New
been a
York if I
few-
wanted to, and here in the morning, New York in the afternoon.
You'd have to be registered in both, and then I mean, that would probably get picked up because the Secretary of States, they do, they
there
do
is a
things
national.
that's national.
Yeah, no, it's illegal, but
Yeah,
a
we've
lot of people
had,
do illegal things.
this is my 5th term up at the State House, and I know of 2 or 3 cases, you know, individual voters that have voted in 2 places. It's not a common occurrence, and they get prosecuted.
No, I can tell you, I have had, disclosing again, my first complaint at the Attorney General's office for not registering a voter in the town of Stratham, because he could not prove domicile. And he chose not to, and he wouldn't sign an affidavit swearing that he lived here.
Hmm.
You gotta do one or the other. You either gotta show us that you live here, or swear an affidavit that says you live here.
So you
Your
turned him
choice.
away, you turned away the voter.
Actually, I think I spent an hour on the phone with a voter, well, the person who wanted to be a voter, and the Secretary of State's office, going through lawyer to lawyer to lawyer, or lawyer to lawyer to lawyer, on, buddy, all you gotta do is sign the paper. And he's like, well, as a matter of fact, I brought my own paper. Like, sorry, buddy. I can't, that's not how this works. So it does happen. And
Yeah.
I don't know what the deal was. Paul Duchesne and I invested a significant amount of time trying to, we did everything we could to register this person, but it has to be a two-way street. You have to either really live here,
Yeah.
And you have to prove it, or you have to swear that you live here, and then we own.
Does living here mean having an address?
That's a great question, that was the whole point of discussion. This person had a post office box at the old Shaw's.
But if I had a house in California and a house here,
Sure.
How do
Well,
you-
the Attorney General kept saying, do you sleep in your post office box? The state law says your domicile.
no,
Where
I'm
is your
talking
domicile?
like real property. House here, house in California. How do
You
you
have
check?
to-
It comes down to the same
You have to
thing. Where
declare
is
your
your domicile?
residency.
Yeah,
Where do you
spend
sleep?
more than 50% of the time?
Where do you spend your time?
So there are people who own homes in 3 places.
Yeah.
You can only be a citizen of one of them.
okay.
Right,
And
just
you
register.
cross-check that?
Yes.
Okay.
And since, one was, I can't tell you which year, but since 2004, it's gotten tighter and tighter and tighter. I mean, you have to produce identification now when you vote in the state of New Hampshire. That's still new within the past 10 years,
Mhm.
past 5 years. We used to just go in, okay, Pete, I know who Pete is, you're all set. We had too many Petes coming from other places. Or accusations that Petes were coming from other places. So, Pete, you gotta have your ID now. We're trying to check and balance everything. Because it is important, you blow the democratic process, if we blow our trust with our voters, you lose. And one of the things that, I know it's kind of clunky to actually have to scan every ballot in an AccuVote machine, but as soon as you go to complete online or electronic voting, and you don't have that box of paper at the end of the day, we just had a fatal flaw. We can't reproduce what we just did. So, short of hand counting, what we have is pretty smooth. In fact, probably 14, 15 years ago, we got halfway through the election, we said, the AccuVote machine says we have a lot less ballots in it than I think we have. Which could be close to a moderator's nightmare. And we figured out that because we were fiscally conservative, I'm not going to say cheap, Connie, I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it.
That's a word.
We were so fiscally conservative that we maybe were a revision behind on our software on our machine, and maybe we bought pens that didn't have the right graphite content in them. So you can't read that little circle. So, that kind of was the proof in the pudding, going toe-to-toe with selectmen counting 5,000 ballots. Hand count 5,000 ballots at the end of the night, because we made a blunder. But we had all the ballots so we could reconstruct it. And after every election, we're required to seal our ballots. And depending on what kind of election it is, whether it's local, state, or federal, we have to preserve the ballots and or deliver them to a time and place certain. And whether it goes to Exeter or the county seat or up to Concord. So when somebody files a petition to do a recount, they have all the Stratham's sealed boxes of ballots with counts for all of our different elections. So as far as integrity, this isn't just the moderator stuff. This is the way the state government, county government, local government has all set it up to make the integrity of our elections tight. So there's no hanging chads with our stuff. And the closest thing we have is, did they color the right circle, or did they color a circle? Which sounds silly, but I'm going to tell you, every election, whether we're doing write-ins or, people put a dot in the circle, they put an X in the circle. The machine's pretty good, but if you can't color the circle, the machine, then it leaves it up to the moderator. What was the voter's intent? Did they mean to write Heidi H? Who is Heidi H? Is Heidi H Heidi Hansen? I believe because Heidi is a write-in candidate and we have hundreds of votes for Heidi, I'm going to interpret this voter meant to say Heidi Hansen, or Heidi however they spell it. Or they have an X there and it should have been a circle, but they clearly made a mark that they were intending to vote for this person. And that's still a discretion that the moderator has, and it's just the moderator has, when we're reviewing and processing our stuff before we close.
Quick question, when the machine reads the ballots, if someone didn't do the right circle, does at the end of the night tell you that there was X amount of errors because of that, or not?
It doesn't say errors. What it counts is overvotes and undervotes.
Yeah.
So if somebody votes over, it doesn't count. Somebody votes under, doesn't matter.
And the only time, I've worked for the Secretary of State for the last quite a few elections, maybe 4 or 5. So I spent 7 days doing recounts. The only time that it'll get picked up is when you're doing a recount. When you're doing the national ones, it'll say, who'd you vote, voted for somebody for governor. And some people will go in and fill in there's another circle on the end for write-ins. But they're doing it like a mental checklist. Okay, voted for governor? Yep. I voted for state senator? Yep. That ballot wouldn't get counted at the local town because it went through as an overvote. But when we do the actual hand counts, that person would get that vote. We also have times where you're supposed to vote, there's 2 people on the ballot, you're supposed to vote for one. Somebody circles in one, and then they're, oh, no, I didn't mean to do that. They put an X through it, and then they fill in the other one. Well, the AccuVote machine is going to see 2 filled in ovals. Nobody's going to get the vote. When we actually do the hand count, they would count it for, the one with the X one wouldn't get the vote, the other one would. So there's, those kinds of little things only get picked up if you do a recount.
If I'm filling out a ballot and I make a mistake,
You're supposed to get a new one.
I can't get it.
You can get a new one.
Can you get a new one? What do you
Yeah,
need to do to
can
get a new one?
3 of times. I think you get 3 shots at it. You get 3 shots at it. You go see him, and he writes on the ballot,
What do I write?
you write that it was rejected or something. Voided, and then he gives him another one. But he still has, when it's state elections, he has to turn that ballot in, because he has to be.
We turn them all in.
Yeah, he has to be
All.
accountable for every ballot that he received coming back. But, I mean, we even get things where somebody circles the name.
No, really, seriously, not in crayon, they usually do it in pen, but
Not filling in the thing, they
That's-
just circled the name. So nothing was filled into that thing. It didn't get counted at the town level.
yeah.
But if you had a recount, I mean, you could have a recount, someone can
Well,
request a
like I
recount.
said, Craig, Wark,
Yeah,
what year was it, you guys?
yeah.
Stratham trivia. Craig was a library trustee, he was running for re-election.
It was tied.
They were tied. We did a recount, they were tied.
Yeah.
What does the state law say the moderator is supposed to do in the election? In the
Flip a coin?
Game of chance.
Flip a coin.
Lot, moderator's choice.
Yeah.
By lot. So we flipped the coin. And Craig lost the election by a coin toss. And he was been library trustee of the year, and the quarter came up wrong. But it was that close, and we've done it a couple times. We've had recounts for selectmen, where we're within a couple votes.
Yeah.
More, I mean, I think I've been the moderator for around 15 years now, and I've done it multiple times.
And you've got a week afterward to request, or you got till Friday.
And what do you have to do to request it, Patty?
Why don't you do it at the state level? You do it through the Secretary of State. I don't know, you must have to, local must have to go to you,
Town clerk.
town clerk.
I want to
And,
recount for moderator.
and then there will
Please.
be, an official
Yeah,
recount.
and they can do it that night. I mean, you do it that night, you can do it within the time.
Yeah, but if somebody makes the request the next Thursday, then you set up a time and go through all the ballots.
Yeah, it's
And
cool.
count.
And we make sure our process is working. The last thing we want to do is short the voters. Voters are right. I think I'm very close here. Let me just tie in, you guys know what this cooperative school district ballot looks like. This is very similar to the rest of them, except the numbers are a lot bigger. I try to make it fun.
I was working and you were just
Dave's
smiling
taking
back.
I know, Beth is always, she's
You're working hard right there,
harder! I try to make it easy and light. One thing I didn't touch on was the SAU Joint Board, which doesn't touch on us financially, but this is another board that sets the policy and procedure for the school district. And it's made up of like 33 members from the 7 different groups. And how do you get 7, may I ask, if there's only 6 communities? Where's the 7th one come from?
The co-op.
Travis and the co-op. Cool stuff. But it's just another thing that you could be confused about, because it's another school board. What do you mean another school board? Well, this is the school board that gives the superintendent guidance. This is the board that hires the superintendent and does the top level stuff in our SAU. That make sense? And it's made up of, like Patty had said, a stack of Exeter people. The rest of us are 3 to 5. So.
Dave, just going back 2 slides, what was, I didn't, the joint board, yeah, I just wanted to read what you said there.
Do you want to touch on this all day? I mean, I chaired the joint board for SU16. Running the meeting with 33 people was a lot of fun.
Which is why anytime we need help on town meeting stuff, I'm like, hey Travis, you know how to do this.
So, I mean, just briefly, I know we're running out of time. The SU16 Joint School Board has no authority over the individual school districts. The SU16 Joint School Board oversees the operations of the superintendent's office. We also try to coordinate some things like policy so that it's consistent throughout our districts, But this body oversees the superintendent's office. That's the body that hires the one employee for the district. We hire the superintendent, him or herself. That's the only person that any joint board has any authority over. So anybody else, if there are issues at certain schools, at SMS, at the middle school, high school, there's building administrators. All the administrators report to the superintendent. So if there are situations where residents may go to a board member, I have an issue going on at SMS, it's building administrator, it's superintendent, the boards have no authority whatsoever over going in and telling a principal, I want you to do this. As an individual board member, we have no authority, but even the entire board cannot walk in and say, Dave, as principal, I want you to change the curriculum. The superintendent oversees all that. But so this body, all 33 of us, have 2 or 3 core responsibilities. We approve the budget for the central office, the superintendent's budget. We evaluate the superintendent, and we're responsible for hiring superintendent. And that's pretty much it. I know some other former board members who have sat on that, but that's, we don't oversee all the districts. We're not some all-powerful, the joint board. We oversee the superintendent and are responsible for hiring that individual.
Still a big responsibility. Just touching on elections. Election officials are comprised of selectmen, town clerk, moderator, supervisors, and ballot clerks. And these are positions, and if you want to learn about Stratham government, we try to staff the course of the day, 8 to 8, with at least 2 shifts. At least 2 shifts. And when we know it's going to be a heavy voter turnout, you've seen it when sometimes there's only 2 tables for check-in, sometimes there's 3 to 5. Depending on the election turnout that we're anticipating, we try to staff up to process voter check-in as quickly as we can to keep the lines to a minimum, to make it as easy as we can for the voters. So this is an easy way for you or anybody in town, a resident in town, to come and get sworn in as an election official to perform the duties for which you're responsible for. And the state law outlines very specific duties and responsibilities for each of the election officials, whether it's providing the physical facility, overseeing the election, overseeing the ballots, overseeing the checklist process, or the checks and balances. I know, it's the junior moderator. And the thing that I guess, I think about the democratic process being something we want everybody to be involved in. There is no authorized, not authorized voters in town. We want people to register to vote. We want them to come and participate in the process. You have to be 18 years old, go to the town clerk's office, and or you can do it on election day, but you cannot register at town meeting or school district meeting night. You have to do it legit. Those are 2 times we're not prepared to deal with that. You have to provide your proof of citizenship, residency, a photo ID. If you weren't born here, you need to have your papers, or sign an affidavit under perjury that you'll go away or you'll do whatever they're going to make you do. Our elections, I published the same list that Deborah published, trying to make sure that we know our stuff. Everything we're talking about is protecting democracy for the future. It's the most important thing we can do, is leave government better than it was when we started, or to be able to carry the torch on to the next generation. I pulled out one quote. Let us not seek the Republican answer or the Democratic answer, but the right answer. Let us not seek to fix blame for the past, and let us accept our own responsibility for the future. In the words of John F. Kennedy. And thank you guys for coming today. And we're glad to get us here, you guys. We can do it. We are Stratham strong. And proud to represent you. I'm proud to work with you. And I'm proud to help us get to where we need to be to solve our problems and to address the challenges that we need to for today and tomorrow. And I think, is it question time, Deborah?
Yeah,
Patty,
thank you
would
very
you,
much. So we are just about time up. So we could take a couple of questions and then want to let you know that Dave is going to be here for a few more minutes and Patty's going to be here for a few more minutes. Travis, are you able to
I'm
stay?
happy to stay for a few.
Travis can stay for a few more minutes. I'll be here too to answer any questions you have about the process, the dates, all the differences between the warrants and the ballots. It's confusing, but we can all learn this and get through this together. And I want to thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I
and
appreciate
thank
it.
you, Patty, expert on the cooperative district. We also have Lucy in the back, who is serving right now on the cooperative school expansion committee, so she can answer any questions you may have about that. And I want to thank Heidi Hansen, the chair of the Stratham Dems, for organizing today, and for the Stratham Dems for baking for you. So thank you so much.
The only thing I add is the best way to learn about it is to get involved.
Just come. Yep.
One
Bring your
thing that we-
knitting
yeah,
too. We
yeah.
got a lot of mittens that are born during town meeting. Tons of mittens that are born. And there are snacks. So there's that.
One item that we didn't touch on that I've had somebody ask me is, how does a town go about becoming an SB2 town? There is a process. It's not something I'm advocating for, but there is a process. Once again, you only need 30 people, 25 people to sign a warrant article. You have to have an information meeting 15 to 30 days before the vote. And then at the vote, that would be something that would be voted on at the ballot, not at the town meeting, not at the school district meeting or the town meeting. It's voted on at the polls, and it takes 2/3 of the people who voted at the polls to do it. We have had that vote before for our town.
Yeah, we had it back in the 80s a few
On
times.
SB2, we've had it a couple times. It has not gotten the 2/3. And if a town is an SB2 and wants to go back, it's basically the same process. So right now, we're SB2 for the co-op, but not for the town meeting and the school district meeting. And, you know, the different philosophies are, you may get less people voting at a town meeting or a school district meeting, but they're informed. They have to come, they listen to the whole budget presentation, they listen to the presentation on the various warrants, so people are more informed. On the other side, people say, well, more people participate if it's SB2. They may not participate if it's deliberative, but more people go to the polls. So there are pluses and minuses of both. We have had that vote. I think it's probably been a good 10, 12 years since the last time we voted on it. But there is a process if a town wants to switch from the school district type meeting to an SB2.
Or, you know, I would challenge people, if they're not happy, to look at all the options and figure out what is our next option.
So also speaking of options, we have a resident here today, Mike Talone is over on the corner, and he has initiated a warrant article. So
This is democracy in process.
yes,
Right now.
this is how it works. So he actually has papers, and if you would like to sign on to his warrant article, in order to get this warrant article at town meeting, he needs 25 residents' signatures who sign on that
Voters'
Voters' signatures that this is a great idea. So, Mike, do you want to talk about your idea? Because you're
Sure.
here and we're here and we can all do
Ultimately,
this.
about a year and a half ago, several residents and myself got together to propose adding some additional recreational facilities within the town of Stratham. Over the last 9 months, we've been working with the board about location. So just last week, we were appointed the Stevens Field location as our site for a skate park. What we're proposing is kind of a multi-use facility for skateboarding, scootering, inline skating, you know, just an alternative sport, or I should say an alternative facility and space for kids that aren't into normal team sports. So, our warrant article is for the funding of the project. It's for $265,000. The tax impact on that is 21 cents per thousand, one time. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, I'm here to
If
answer
anybody's
them.
confused, you remember Michael came before the town last year?
Yes, we were awarded some money last year through the town vote, and that funds were used to appropriate the design contract with a company out of Arizona and surveying and engineering on the space. So we've used some of that funds, not all of it. The rest of that is kind of sitting there for the final project.
I bring it up because just like the democratic process, you know, there was an idea. They said, how do we start it? They brought it forward, asked for seed money to get it started, and now he's back to say, and this is what it's going to take to seal the deal and to construct the project, which is, I can't, you know, I just commend your efforts for being responsible and trying to include everybody in what's going on.
We've had really great response from local residents in town. We've had a local resident who's done a lot of work pro bono on engineering on the groundwork of the site. And we're working with other businesses in town and within the seacoast to help lower the cost of the project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lucy?
I'm not to criticize Dave, but I did happen to notice there's one thing that wasn't included on your slide. And one other thing on the co-op ballot is the Budget Advisory Committee for the cooperative is an elected position. There are 9, just like 9 school board people, there are 9 people, 2 from Stratham, 3 from Exeter, 1 from each of the others. I happen to be one of the Stratham people. When I got off the board, the spot was open, and I've been there ever since. But anyway,
Anytime you think you're out, pull you right
pull you
back
right
in.
back in. You
And
don't
let's
get
see,
out
how
of it.
big of a budget are we talking about?
It's just under $60 million.
$60
and
million, so we're
So,
gonna,
and unlike the school and the town, where the moderator appoints the budget committee, this is an elected position, so you will see 3 names on the ballot. Mine, I know I signed up, I don't know if I have competition or not. If somebody else wants to do it, that's fine with me, but I'm willing to do it for another 3 years if nobody else wants to. And the other thing is, and I know that you don't mean for it to sound that way, but sitting here listening to the presentation, I get a feeling that there is a sense that we should maybe go to SB2. And I would just like to say that I hope that before anyone brings another warrant article forward to present that to the town, that you think about it long and hard, because I have lived in town longer than anyone else in the room, I guarantee it, and I have seen a lot of changes, and I can tell you that minds are changed at town meeting when people get up and explain. Skateboard park might be an example, saving the old town hall last year. People go in with if that was an article on the ballot, you can go in and you say, I don't want to save the old town hall. No. I don't have any kids with a skateboard park. No. The budget is $60 million. No. Do they know anything about why the budget is $60 million? No, because they didn't go to the deliberative session, they haven't read anything. They go in and say, I don't want my taxes to go up, so they vote no on every single thing that costs money. And we've lived with that with the co-op ever since we started it. We voted the old way. We had to go to the Phillips Exeter Academy gym to accommodate the size for everybody to come. And we voted to establish the co-op to approve the bond for the middle school, which was the beginning of the cooperative. But ever since then, we've been SB2. So it's very easy for people not to go to deliberative session and then just to go in and vote no on everything that costs money. And we live with that for the co-op, and that's how we deal with the bond. And I don't mean I mean, one thing I heard here today was that we lost the bond, we lost the middle school because of Brentwood. That's not really true. It takes 60% of the voters, all the voters, people who vote, to pass a bond for SB2. Every town except Brentwood passed it. They got a majority, but only Stratham and Exeter gave it more than 60% and just barely. So that wasn't enough to carry it. The bond would not have passed, even if Brentwood had, maybe if Brentwood had passed it, yes, but it wasn't getting the 60% of the total vote anyway. But the fact that Brentwood, every other town passed it, and Brentwood said no overwhelmingly, has given everyone a very negative attitude about Brentwood. And I will say that our committee has worked very hard to include and get the people of Brentwood involved and on board for this new proposal, and hopefully they're at least informed enough to make a really informed decision, and I would encourage you all to do the same thing.
Which is the best place to access the agenda for a town meeting? Like, what will be discussed at any town meeting?
That's a great point. The Town of Stratham website and the Wigan Memorial Library website usually are intertwined. And as soon as the ballot and the warrant is set up, it'll be online for you to get to.
And there will be
Yeah, and we always, the Town of Stratham is required to put out a town report, which usually comes out somewhere between a week and a couple of weeks before. And you'll see them at the post office, you'll see them at the firehouse, you'll see them around
The
town.
library.
The library.
Thank you, the library. Well, this
Town
is,
clerk's office.
this is the minutes from last year's proceedings, and this is the budget and all the department head reports that tell you what's going on in the town of Stratham. It even has my coffee on it from my bag.
And all the warrant
It
articles.
has this
well as the
year's
warrant
warrant articles.
Has current warrant articles.
What will
Just-
go on the ballot this March is in the book. Is in there, yep.
What will be at town meeting is in the
Yeah,
book.
town meeting, right.
The election stuff is not in the book, this is just town meeting. Election, they'll be posted, there's usually the newspaper will cover it, we'll know who's running for each of the positions, it'll be posted online. I say is generally the best way to
And
find
copies
it.
at the library. Leslie puts them up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and,
we put up the sample ballots as well, and town clerk's office does, so you can see the ballot as well as see who's running
which I
online.
encourage you, that's one thing, as well as the library puts together a forum to meet a lot of candidates, but when you, even on your way into the ballot booth, we have sample ballots posted from the parking lot all the way into the room. So you can look at it, and if you need to say, hey, what does this mean, or what are you thinking about that, you can say that before you get in the room, and before you get in your booth. Because once you're in the booth, it's supposed to be just you in the booth. And you can't, people come and ask me how they're supposed to vote on things. I can't tell you how you're supposed to vote on things. And once you have your ballot,
Plus, who trusts a guy in a bow tie?
Hey Dave, did you mention the information night about the town meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's on your seat.
And that
That's-
information
that's
night, we do introduce the candidates, but we spend a lot of time on the warrant articles, including the zoning articles, which you do vote on the ballot, and that's something that I know can be very confusing with the legal language. So I highly encourage you to come. We also, Jean, who's here today, and her partner Michael, will be filming that as well. So we post that right away within a day or two of the meeting. So if you aren't able to make it, you'll be able to access that online as well.
So can you just summarize what topics are voted on at the town meeting versus what's voted on a ballot?
that's a great question. Ballots are positions to elect people to, and generally non-fiscal items.
Zoning.
Planning, zoning, yeah, easy yes or no questions.
So maybe
If
maybe
you
stick to the
understand.
three. There's the school district, the town, and the regional district, right? So the school district ballot only has elected positions. The town ballot has elected positions in zoning, and the Exeter Co-op position has everything on their ballot. Yeah.
Yes, so when you pick up your three ballots, you're gonna see three different things going on. One of them has everything, the other two just have non-financial issues. The financial stuff, you have to be in the room with the town meeting and school district town meeting form of government. Yeah, well, I mean, and if you can help us reach out to the rest of the neighbors, your family, your friends, to help people understand how vitally important it is, not to just do things the way another town does it, make decisions that are right for us, and to know that we can't do it with everybody. You know, our world has changed with social media, because it's easy to bash or flip or attack anybody without a dialogue. And, you know, even when people ask questions about town government on Facebook and tag me, you know, I'm not interested in entering a Facebook debate on town government. I gotta be honest. But some people live and die by that,
So
so.
budget's at the town meeting.
That's what I thought. So
Yeah.
this is just non-fiscal on the ballot,
Okay.
right? Come on, don't say yeah. I'm asking you.
That was great. Well, hey, thank you guys. Thank you, Town of Stratham.